Before Megan Fox, Brooke Shields, Farrah Fawcett, Twiggy, even Marilyn Monroe herself, there was an original It girl, Clara Bow. No, literally. Her breakout role in the 1927 movie It is where the term It girl came from. But like so many women in Hollywood, Clara's life was anything but glamorous. Shocking. But seriously, the she went through was so insane, I don't think this video is going to be enough time to talk about it. Clara Bow was born into poverty in Brooklyn, New York, 1905. She was the only child due to her two older siblings dying in infancy. David Steen wrote in his book, Clara Bow Running Wild, that the neighborhoods in which Bow's parents lived were rat-infested, impoverished places. He goes as far as to describe these Brooklyn apartments as slum buildings. In a time before sanitation regulations or health and safety codes, it was completely legal for landlords to cram their tenants into small rooms with no windows, and often, many times, families sharing one single toilet.
Could you imagine that? As someone that lives in an apartment, I can imagine not only sharing your bathroom like a damn dorm, but your toilet with other people in your apartment building.
Records show that her parents, Robert and Sarah Bow, lived in 160 Stan Street, one of the roughest areas in America at the time. Her father was barely there, unemployed, and pretty much just a bum. Clara, in her early years, adored her mother. Her mom, Sarah, struggled with mental health, but in 1911, a head injury completely threw her overboard. While it's unclear if it was truly an accident or a failed attempt, the head injury came from her falling down a flight of stairs. After that, Sarah would have mysterious seizures and was just never the same. And since Clara had no responsible adults around her, she became her mother's primary caretaker at just 7 years old. And due to her mother's mental condition, Clara dealt with a lot of violent abuse. Her mother once tried to kill Clara in her sleep with a butcher knife. Let's just sit with that for a second. This is when they officially had to take Sarah away to a mental facility. Clara's father, Robert, became her primary caretaker, and even though he was never there and was reportedly an alcoholic that was also very abusive, at 16, she won a beauty contest. This launched her into the movies. And this made Robert very happy, not because he was some proud father in a way, but because he used her money to pay off gambling debts and bar tabs. Alright, a prop man that worked with a young Clara in several films, William Keplin, said that her father was very unwelcoming. He said, quote, "As long as Clara was making money, he was happy." Reports did, on Clara's life, sadly claim that her father had been SAing her through her teenage years. Quick side note, it pisses me off that I even have to say SA instead of the full word. These are things that we need to spread awareness about, but for some reason, creators have to use code words so they don't get demonetized. How are we supposed to spread awareness if we can't even speak about the thing at hand? Sorry, it just irks me. Back to Clara. So with all of this going on at home, her social life was very hard. She was very lonely and would get bullied for her speech impediment as well as her clothes due to her being extremely poor, which I never got. Like, why the hell are we bullying people who are poor or born into poverty? Like, it's their fault. Like, I'm sorry, I'm stronger than you, asshole. She did have this one friend named Johnny. Johnny was a few years younger and lived in the same street. He struggled with the same home life as Clara, and Clara adored Johnny. She would walk him home to school and walk him in the morning. She was very protective over Johnny. Speaking to a celebrity magazine about Johnny, she wrote,
"I would fight the boys that bothered him, and I would lick any boy my size."
But one day, coming home from school, she heard a big commotion, and when she went to go see, what she found was Johnny aflamed, having been caught in a house fire. Being just a child herself did not stop her from trying to save her best friend. She rolled him up in a carpet and patted the fire out. But when the fire was out, she was too late, and he died in her arms. Clara was once asked how she was able to cry on cue so fast, and she replied, "My childhood." Clara landed many roles in movies due to her beauty and energetic personality. Her face was just so beautifully expressive.
More than a lot of actresses today can say, if you catch my drift.
She moved to Hollywood in 1923 at just 18 years old. Since this was a time when people started to idolize movie stars, Clara had a lot of pressure on her back. She had to stay very thin. Her movie contract required her to stay under 118 pounds with a diet of pretty much nothing but lettuce and cottage cheese for months. She was not allowed to eat more than 500 calories a day. If you don't know how little that is one sleeve of Ritz crackers. For more reference, an average 18-year-old girl burns about 2,000 calories for just existing. Studios pushed her to take diet pills and heavy drugs to keep her weight down and her energy up. Because hey, what better way to treat a young girl with a rough life than with drugs and starvation, right?
That always ends up well.
She was underpaid and overworked. At her peak, she was making 15 movies a year. And to make it even better, her lovely father, Robert, was now her dadager, controlling her life and pinching for money. Just like studios viewed her, she was a paycheck. Because of her looks and her new shiny Hollywood life, the press shredded her. They called her wild, promiscuous, but in reality, this was an 18-year-old girl being forced to take drugs to stay thin and energetic for days. So what did she do at night when her body was stuck in overdrive and she couldn't eat? Or when she was high off pills they gave her? She drank. But that's sad, right? So she was just a crazy, seductive flapper girl. Why? Because the story sold better.
You like that, Mama?
Late 20s, talkies were in, and sound pictures took over Hollywood. But when she did her first talkie, she was again ripped apart. For her Brooklyn accent, critics called her voice too street and unladylike.
Say, if you want exercise, try your muscles on this.
There's actually a parody of this in Singing in the Rain.
But tonight I'm gonna do my own talking. I'm gonna make the speech.
No, you can't do it.
The heavy Brooklyn accent that was based off Clara, her voice was treated as a joke and a punchline.
The voice of a real girl behind the it girl image became a punchline because these rich Hollywood critics never actually cared about what a poor girl from the poorest part of Brooklyn sounded like. And when they did, they didn't like it. They wanted her to sound soft, polished, upper class, like some delicate rich girl. But that wasn't Clara. That was never Clara. But then again, the public didn't really care about who she actually was. They cared about how she looked. As long as she stayed beautiful and silent, they adored her. Okay, I do want to jump a little bit more into her love life because the lore is crazy, but I'll speed it up a bit because it's a lot. Hold on. I mean, men were obsessed with her, head over heels. She once met a gazillionaire named Robert Savage at a party. Her and Robert shared a kiss that night, and he goes on to brag about it to everyone, especially the press. And Clara, rightfully so, is really annoyed by this and dumps him. Robert was so upset by this, he threatens to end his life. Her response was, quote, he won't because he thinks too much of himself. Ugh, queen. He then goes on to send her letters and won't stop stalking her. So she agrees to go for a drive with him one night. But he tries to take her to get a marriage license, and she obviously freaks out, and she's like, hell nah, I don't like you, and completely drops his ass that night. Well, that same night, he puts up a photo next to him on his sofa of her and attempts to bleep himself. That fails because he didn't actually mean to do it. He just wanted to get more press coverage. He literally straight up told his friends before he did it, and they called the police, and when they came, he was completely fine smoking a cigarette and told them everything. This gets out to the press, and obviously, she's so annoyed at this point that she does her own press conference. Her response was, when men want to end it over love, they do it with pistols, not safety razors. Damn, who's the savage now? Some more crazy lore. Clara was once engaged to 3 men at once and was able to convince each of them that she was only engaged to one. While filming one of her big movies, The Plastic Age, 1925, she meets her co-star named Gilbert Roland, hot damn, and begins an affair with him. And of course, Father Robert's ass was very controlling of Clara's love life and hated most of the men she'd see. Even though his creepy ass was milking his daughter's Hollywood life and money and going out getting girls 20 years younger than him, of course, but he especially hated Roland because he was Mexican and Catholic. Clara must have really loved Roland because she saw him anyway, despite being very afraid of her own father. Then, when she's filming Man Trap, another hit, she meets director Victor Fleming, the director of Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz, all in the same damn year. Clara was 20 and Victor was 43 when they met. She was completely in love with him because he was the first person in her life to really encourage her and basically tell her how talented she was. Because obviously the people in her life, and especially at work, were so cruel because they manipulated her to feel that she needed them, but in reality, they needed her more than anything because she was that bitch. So, her and Victor end up getting engaged despite the huge age gap. I don't agree with this kind of age gap, frankly, it's very creepy, but apparently he was pretty understanding of her ways and even chill with her having affairs because he knew she was just young and wild. Then, hubba hubba, hunk number 3 comes in, filming Children of Divorce, Mr. Gary Cooper himself. Now, Clara feels that it's very needed that they practice more of these intimate scenes outside of work, of course, like the flirty cat she was. I mean, do you blame her? Then, Mr. Roland hears about these 2 other men, and he's like insanely jealous, and Clara is loving it. She's like, no, you're the only one. Besides Victor, these men are going crazy in this wild love triangle, or square. This went on for a while, but Roland, along the other men, do remain good friends with her afterwards, and she does end up marrying and staying with a man named Rex Bell, a Western actor / politician. Now, I don't agree with this behavior, but you do have to keep in mind Clara's insane trauma, forced drug use, and SA abuse, also the fact that she was still basically a child through this. She was also told when she was younger by her mother that in order to be a successful woman, you need to never be in love and be able to manipulate men and never show emotion. Damn, Sarah.
I want you to meet the most gorgeous man in the world, Mr. Rex Bell, my husband. Hooray! Say hello, darling.
Hello, everybody.
After years of being shamed by the public, starved while running on nothing but drugs and alcohol, overworked, and taken advantage of by men in Hollywood and her own father, by her 30s, Clara was broken. She married Rex Bell, and they had 2 sons. On paper, it looked like she escaped, but it wasn't enough. Not for all the pain and trauma this poor girl had to carry. From what I found, Rex did try to help her, but not in like a storybook loving way, more in like a I can fix this broken pretty girl myself way. And you can't fix someone like that, not when the damage runs that deep, and definitely not when your motives aren't fully pure. Eventually, Rex grew resentful, and it wasn't that he was all good or all bad, he was just human, just like Claire. And their relationship was complicated, messy, and when love gets tested like that, a lot of ugly comes out. Still, when Clara's mental health declined, Rex became the primary caretaker of their sons. And while he may not fully understood Clara, he didn't walk away either. She was diagnosed with schizophrenia and depression and eventually institutionalized in 1944. Clara was deeply traumatized, so much so that as her own sons got older, she purposely kept her distance. Some accounts say that she even asked to be kept away from them. Not because she didn't love them, because she was so scared of herself. That's how much shame and pain this woman carried. And before you judge her for that, I want you to sit with her story for a moment. Clara never got the help she needed. Her father was an alcoholic who abused her and stole from her. Her best friend died in her arms. Her mother once held a knife to her throat while she slept. The adults around her, the managers, the studios, fed her drugs and alcohol and took advantage of her physically, financially, and emotionally. It makes me really sad because I know if Clara had gotten the help she deserved, she could have truly been an amazing mother. Think about it. She put up with her father's abuse to keep him happy. She adored her ill mother and cared for her, even as a child herself. She literally jumped into a fire to save her best friend. And she always wore a smile, even in her darkest days. She was always a caretaker, always giving and always sacrificing, but no one cared for Clara. So when she was mentally at her worst, she believed the only way to protect her children was to keep them away and keep what happened to her from happening to them. She died in 1965 due to a heart attack at just age 60, alone in her California apartment. Clara was once the most loved woman in the world, and she died almost completely forgotten. Because they threw her out, straight into the it girl garbage, the same pile they toss every woman into when she gains weight, breaks down, or simply just gets old. Because you're not a person, you're a pretty product, and when you expire, they throw you away. Clara Bow wasn't just the first it girl, she was the definition of what that phrase even means. That's exactly it. She wasn't a human, not a child, not a she. She was an it. And once you make someone an it, it's easier for you to throw them around, break them, and toss them. Because that's what we do, and what we always done. To every woman the media sinks their teeth into. We're all guilty of this in some way. Be honest, how many of you watched the clips I showed earlier and compared those women like there was some kind of beauty contest going on? Who's hotter? Who got the better body? The better face? That's the game, right? A never-ending shopping mall of women to price, dissect, or destroy. That's exactly why Clara's story matters. It's tragic and horrible. And because we need to ask ourselves, when do we stop seeing these people as people? We glamorize them, we dehumanize them, and we get away with it because, hey, they're famous, right? Who cares? But maybe you weren't alive to ridicule Clara. Maybe you didn't rip her apart in the magazines or behind studio doors. But what you're doing now on TikTok and Instagram and media in general might be even worse. Clara Bow was never chasing fame. She wanted to be loved. She wanted freedom from pain. And the world made sure she never got that. So if you had to take one thing away from her story, man or woman, let it be this. Stop starving yourself. Don't get work done because it makes you, quote, feel better. Stop shaping your life around others and how others see you. Because you'll never be enough. But that's a beautiful thing. You're not a product. You're not here to be sold, rated, or consumed. Validation is cheap, and it never lasts. You could spend your whole life chasing enough and still die starving for it, with no one by your side, not even yourself. The world took the most beautiful girl alive and threw her away like nothing. So don't play their game. You're not a perfect angel. You're not a sex bombshell object. You're a human, a complex animal with billions of flaws. And that's more than enough. Clara was everything. And what is she now? Don't let the world do that to you. You're not disposable. You're a human being, a temporary treasure. You're not here to be flawless. You're here to up, learn, feel, love, not take shit. So take care of yourself, because in the end, that's the only person that will die with you. Even if you're alone right now, at least you're still with yourself. So be someone worth staying with.